Welcome to our extended episode on AI leadership and trust. Today, we will dive deep into human and organizational side of the AI adoption. What happens when technology meets leadership, governance, and trust? With us is Sandeep Balekar, who is CEO of 𝐿. Sandeep, welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Amit. So you're asking about what does holistic leadership mean in the context of AI?
Yeah.
So from my perspective, the holistic leadership in AI means you're not treating AI as an IT. Okay, it's not an IT project. You are treating it as an organizational capability. It's where the strategy, technology, risk, culture, and people all sit at the same table. So this is not isolation. The CEOs, CIOs, risk business unit leaders are aligned with why we are using AI, where it creates the value, how we will manage the risk, and what this means for jobs and skills. When the whole picture is joined up, AI stops being a collection of experiments and becomes the part of how organization actually works. So it's not isolation. It is basically the leadership needs to be center stage. They need to be on the center stage, glue everyone together, and enable AI or enable the organization to use AI in a holistic manner.
Thanks, Asim. So let's begin with the leadership. What does holistic leadership means in the context of AI?
So when we talk about leadership, we have seen that leaders, they are the pace at which AI is evolving, leaders are not able to cope up. So the leadership in today's world in 2025, 2026 is about being connected. So a lot of disconnected pilots with no clear ownership and roadmap is happening right now. So leaders needs to work upon and demonstrate that the pilots which are running, they are actually connected with each other. So weak leadership is basically disconnected pilots. The weak leadership can be a different teams bringing their own data pipelines and models in isolation. The weak leadership could be conflicting priorities. The weak leadership could be no one is accountable for value. So it's all isolation, and the creating that environment is all weak leadership. And how you can turn that table is basically working in a collaborative manner. In our book, we have also spoke about the collaborative framework, and that is the pivotal and the center of all the problems and creating the strong leadership.
So, what are the symptoms of a weak leadership in AI project?
And as I said, a lot of disconnection. So leadership is not a technology. So strong AI leadership creates a single vision, not ownership. It's shared standards and the the way to say no rather than saying yes to everything. It's not technology first, it's the business first. So understanding what business requires and providing the technology to make sure the business objectives are managed. And weak leadership is all about disconnected and isolated siloed teams and running those siloed projects in isolation. That is what the symptoms of weak leaderships are.
Okay. So speaking of trust, why it is such a recurring challenge?
Now, trust is very important, especially at the age where there's a lot of unclarity. I would say there is no clarity for a lot of people about the jobs, about the security, about future. There is a lot of blurry kind of future people see for the short term. Because AI touches what people care about most, right? Their data, their jobs, their reputation. There are really three layers of trust, I would say. Trust in leadership, first thing. So leaders need to be trustable. So they need to be very, very transparent. Trust in systems. So that is systems which we are building. It is modeled fair, secure, and reliable. And the third one is trust between the teams. So the collaborative framework which we are talking about is very pivotal, right? It's the core of it. So I would say, speaking of trust in leadership, trust in systems, which we are building, trust within the teams. That's what I would say trust is, and why it is recurring problem. When any one of these breaks, right? Any of the three things break, people hold back, delay decisions, or quietly undermine the initiatives, right? So that is why I think the trust is built through the transparency, inclusive designs in the systems, and clear guardrails and involving teams, rather than presenting AI as finished, mysterious solution.
Very well put, Sandeep. Uh, so, establishing clear communication channels is critical. So, how do you see what can be done to communicate properly in a large organization?
So organizations need structure, right? So AI is all about structure, the rhythm. The good communication around AI includes, I would say, a clear narrative from leadership. So leadership is very important. I think that is the core of it. Why we are doing this? They need to clearly articulate and clearly tell the teams why we are doing this, what success looks like, and what it means for the people.
Yeah.
So clear narrative from the leadership is very important. Regular cross-functional forums, because we are talking about the collaborative framework, right? So the town halls, the show the tell, and Q&A sessions where people can challenge and learn from each other. Lastly, I would say the simple visual roadmaps, right? The FAQs, instead of dense technical documentation, which we used to have years and years. But in AI space, I would say the clear visual roadmaps needs to be presented, and that brings communication, improved communication, I would say.
I've been very much supportive of this one pagers.
Yeah.
Sometime one pager could be of A0 size, but that's what was there, and everyone to see and everyone to pretty much like comment on it. So it always creates it's like what's in it for me from individual roles. That's very well put, Sandeep.
No, absolutely. So, you see, I mean, when the communication is predictable, right? As you said, one pager, when it's predictable, open, and two-way communication, not just the one way, right? I'm just not sending the email. I'm saying like FAQs and the clear two-way communication. People actually stop guessing, right? And they start contributing and collaborating.
That's one. So what about the architecture? How can architecture design support this trust and collaboration?
So I always say, right? So architecture is a shared problem solving.
Yeah.
It's a shared problem solving framework rather than a set of diagrams, right? It's not like when we create architectures, we talk to so many stakeholders, because it is to the core, it is basically collaboration. It's a collaborative problem solving framework. A good AI architecture, I would say, it makes it clear how business goals map to the data model and systems. Everything starts from business objective, and that also the CRISP-DM process also talks about the same. Like, start from business understanding, then data understanding, data preparation, data modeling, and then productionization. So everything starts from what business goals we have. Is it mapped to the data we have? Is it mapped to the models? Is it mapping to the systems? And defining the standards of data quality, security, monitoring, and model governance is again should be part of the architecture. And encourages reuse of components, because once we create a component, we want to make sure that our teams reuse those components. We need not to rebuild those components multiple times. And that is what I think a good architecture looks like. Rather than creating the wheel all over again, we need to use the components, and the Kubernetes and Docker and all these things has been there. But with AI, I think the models, what we are creating, when we create that, we need to understand how we are solving that problem. Can we reuse that models somewhere else in the business? So it's embedded control, like access management, audit trails, and explainability is a very big thing. I used to work for a big bank. I always tell that story that our CFO was very savvy of, like, when you can't explain a model, probably it's very risky for the bank.
Yeah.
And the challenge which we had is obviously explaining the black box models or neural net models. But I still think that, and that is really good way to put the architecture.
That's wonderful. And I think the architecture does need to be not the ivory tower, but it should be for the people to use for a day to day. So
Yeah.
one thing, one component of every organization is their legacy systems. So how can they begin the transition to AI?
Legacy systems. I mean, I started my career from mainframes, and I learned a lot from the previous generation. They passed that, thinking of how to design systems effectively, the assembling code, and so on and so forth. I feel that is still relevant, and how we begin the transition from legacy systems to the next. It is, I think, same story we have seen from legacy systems to the internet era, then cloud and mobile technologies. So there are three aspects, I would say, for the transition, which helps us to with the transition. Is assessing the landscape, like catalog the systems, data flows, pain points what we have, and identify the quick wins. The second one is defining the target state, like this is the legacy state, like what is our target state. So a north star of architecture that shows how AI, data platform, and core systems fit together.
Yeah.
That is defining the target state, and then move in phases rather than moving all together. So third step was creating those phased approach. Use patterns like wrapping legacy systems with APIs, building a central data platform, and modernizing the high value areas first.
Yeah.
So I would say these two to three steps would help us begin that transition in a very effective manner.
Thanks. So when we start talking about legacy system and migration, the big issue will come the change management. So why it's so essential for the AI success?
Great question again. So I will bring people or listeners back to the CAIF again. That's the framework, but collaborative AI framework that we have created and presented with the audience from our AI adoption book. So frameworks like CAIF help structure this journey so that have a clear roadmap, so that they can have a clear roadmap, measurable milestones, and governance backed in. So to answer your questions, why it is so essential for AI success, the change management, because AI is not a tech upgrade. I have been telling that, right? No, AI is not a tech upgrade. It is a change on how decisions are made. It is a change on how work is done. It is a change on how people see their own future, right? If you ignore the human side, right, you will get resistance. You will get anxiety. You will get non-compliance.
Yeah, and non-cooperation as well.
And non-cooperation as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can an organization measure the impact of AI initiative effectively? Means end of the day, somebody will come and ask you that you have spent this much of money. What is the benefit to the organization? So how do they do that?
Like you measure AI in any other strategic investment, like any other, like you need to identify value metrics like revenue uplift, cost reduction, risk reduction, customer satisfaction. Is a very important. Like customer satisfaction is impacted by. So what are the value metrics? Adoption matrices, like number of users, what we are increasing, usage frequency, process coverages. Then the quality and risk, which very important to the world, which not many people are talking about. Model accuracy, error rates, the bias which models can bring, and the compliance indicators, and then sustainability matrices like compute usage, like how much compute we are using, is it energy efficient, resource optimization. And all these things we have been talking about from the CAIF AI architecture layer. The framework, again, I'm repeating and talking about the same framework, which is really impactful. What we have created from the CAIF framework architecture layer. This helps organizations define their metrics up front, so AI projects don't end as interesting experiment. And most of the AI projects are in 2025 ended up in as an interesting experiment, even though companies, they funded the projects, ultimately the ROI was not there. So the CAI framework, what we have written in our book, it talks about the architecture, and it talks about how organizations can measure that impact of AI initiative.
So Sandeep, we may need to revisit one of the topic of green IT. So what role does sustainability play in this context, especially in the AI adoption?
I mean, sustainability is no longer optional now. It's a core part of responsible AI. And I have been a big and huge advocate of responsible AI because large models and data centers consume a significant resources. And green ICT and sustainable AI is really important. What it asks is basically, can we use more efficient models and infrastructure? Can we reuse the components? I've been talking about in this podcast about the reusing the components. One of the major ways and reason is sustainability. Can we use the reuse the components what we are building? right? And are we optimize our storage,
Yeah.
compute, neural? And that's the thing I have learned from the previous generation, because storage was expensive. So the way we have coded and the previous generation coded, and I learned from that generation that when you code, you
Yeah.
need to take care of storage, compute, and all the things.
So there was a course in when I was doing my computer science, which was a mathematical subject, and it was teaching how to set up a large matrix in 64K kilobyte. Afterwards, I thought I will never use it, but now I can see that every time a new technology came, that concept became very important. Whether it was a communication channels, how to communicate large data, and other thing. So that's very well put to Sandeep. So, what will be your final message to the leaders who are preparing their organization for an AI-driven future?
My message to the leaders and who are preparing their organization for future of AI is start with people, right? Not just the platform. Build a culture where trust, learning, and collaborations are normal. Invest in skills, upskill your staff, and create a space for experimentation and be transparent about both opportunities and limitations of AI.
Yeah, be ready to fail, but fail fast.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
uh, th- Thank you, Sandeep. Very beautifully put, and for enlightening this discussion. So, for our audience, remember, leadership is the true engine behind every success in the AI story. Thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you, Amit sir.